The Peace Dependency Podcast is brought to you by Total Red NES. Shop your Goofy Food Controller TWO merch and CTWC approved hardware on TotalRedNES.com. Welcome to the Peace Dependency Podcast. I'm your host, Frank, also known as Sir Mason. Today, we have someone on the show who does a lot. From being the new owner of the NTSC Elo ranking to doing research for both CTWC and the Best of 5 commentary. It is pumpyheart. We talked a week after the conclusion of the 2021 Classic Tetris World Championship. We talked about being Statician, working on a match database, and being the new owner of the NTSC Elo ranking. This is our conversation. Pumpy, welcome to the Peace Dependency Podcast, and thank you so much for doing this.
Hi, Frank. Love to be here. Big fan of the podcast, and thanks for having me on.
First question is always the same question for everyone who's new on the podcast, and that is, how did you get into NES Tetris?
So this one's a little different than some of the other ones you've heard. I actually attended CTWC 2017 in Portland.
No way.
Believe it or not. Yes, I was there, though, for the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. I was like hanging out at the expo with friends, and then I looked at the little pamphlet manual that they give to everybody who attends the expo, and it said, I caught Chris Tang's bio. Believe it or not. And in the bio, he mentions the meme. He's like, I'm famous for the Boom Tetris for Jeff meme. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I'm like, hey guys, there's this Tetris tournament you want to watch? So we watched a game, not a full match. We just walked over and hung out for a bit. And I'm pretty sure Kataru was playing, and that's as far as my memory will go. So I don't remember who the players were necessarily. Don't remember the score lines. 2017 Portland, for the PRGE. And so I went home. I was like, okay, I got to at least check out this meme now. What's this meme video? I watched the meme video and then got immediately into watching all the tournaments that had been uploaded at that time. So 2017, right? So pretty old school in that regards. And then I started watching the YouTube uploads once Classic Tetris was adding CTM Masters. And then I started in 2019 hanging out in chat of CTM, getting on Twitch and making that happen. This is probably bad. So I started in 2017. It wasn't until 2020 that I got my cartridge. I'm a big retro game collector, and I didn't have a Tetris cart. I was just watching it happen. And in the end of 2020, I got a cartridge, and then started playing in March of 2021, just this year. Yeah.
When you looked up that meme after you got home from the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, were you bummed that you didn't watch more of Classic Tetris during your visit?
That's a good question. I didn't realize that so it's a 2-day event at that time, Saturday and Sunday. I didn't realize that we were probably watching part of the quarterfinals on Sunday. So I was bummed about missing some of that action. But I think in terms of missing the scene, honestly, not really. I wasn't quite hooked. I thought the meme was pretty great. It took a few months after that. I'm like, oh man, I wish we had stayed around, watched more. And we were planning to, in 2018, go again if we stayed up there. I was living in the Pacific Northwest at the time. And if we were still there in 2018, we would have gone again. And then I would, I'll check out the 2018. And that would have been, of course, one to be at. All of them are, but that was definitely a shifting meta at that point. So
it was the start of something bigger and better for the scene. Yes,
absolutely, yeah. So regret? No, not necessarily, but a little bit. Like, we could have checked that out a little bit more.
Did you play any Tetris game before you got involved as being a fan of Classic Tetris?
No, I had a Tetris game on Windows 95 growing up. It was, I think, a freeware kind of version of it.
Yeah.
Did have a hard lock on. It wasn't quite modern rules or anything. So I played that for a bit as a kid, but really like hadn't touched the game um, until watching CTWC.
Yeah. When did you become addicted to classic Tetris that you wanted to follow pretty much every tournament
Right.
that there was online?
Yeah, because I do watch a ton now. I think it was so in 2018 and 2017. I was working an overnight job. I had crazy hours. I was working from 3 in the morning till noon the following day.
Yeah.
And so working with those hours, I had a lot of time to myself, either trying to wake up or after work or during work, maybe even a little bit too.
Yeah.
So I could watch those and watch what was going on, and that really kind of got me hooked, I would say. Yeah.
You joined the CTM Discord in March of 2020. And like you said, you only got your cartridge at the end of 2020, started playing early 2021. Why didn't you have a cartridge earlier? Like you've been fan for since 2017, since 2018, and it took you 3-4 years until you got a cartridge.
Yeah, I guess I'm pretty different in that regard, and for many people in the scene, I watch the game and I'm just still so amazed at what's going on.
Yeah.
And as someone who really loves playing games and creating games, I just have never had that drive to dedicate myself to like a specific game, you know? And
Yeah.
a lot of people in the community and in the scene definitely do, right? They're like, all right, this is my game, Tetris, and maybe I'll play this 1 or 2 other games, right? It's not, whereas I'm a little bit more of a generalist. So I try to play old games, new games, games of all different genres and styles. And I haven't really dedicated. So that's one thing. On the other hand, every time I went to the local game store, the Tetris cartridge was just too expensive. I don't know if it was Tetris blowing up or whatever, but I would see it for $15, $20, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
this is like a $3, $5 game. They sold millions of copies. Come on. So I waited until I saw it for $5, and I said, okay, now I'll buy the Tetris cartridge.
I mean, everything retro is immediately up by $10-15.
That's right.
But do you consider yourself a Tetris player or not?
No, definitely not. I mean, I play for fun. And have a good time, but I have no competitive desires whatsoever. Yeah.
Then what made you dive into the statistics of classic Tetris? Since you're not a player, but you devote so much time into statistics, into research, into all that of a game you like to watch but don't like to play. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah, it's definitely different. So, in part of that overnight job, and part of some of my other jobs I've worked in data ingest and data presentation. You know, like how do you present statistical models to a general public? So those things I'm comfortable with. And when I started pursuing further degrees, I said, okay, well, the degree and the interest I'm in studying, that's completely different than statistical models and web sheets and database managements and all that. So I wanted so a little bit of it was hobby. I had a little hobby interest. On the other hand, the actual reason I joined the CTWC 2020 like qualifier spreadsheet. There was a bunch of editors going on who were trying to update the quals as they came in, right?
Yeah.
In 2020, it was a little bit, first year CTWC was online. It was a little bit, what does this mean? And of course, the spreadsheet I was editing was unofficial at the time. But I was it was with CTWC, but it was like until the judges verified this is unofficial. But that entire qual week was just growing like organically. And so I was able to jump in. It was Mr. Valor had his qual and he gave me edit perms. So Mr. Valor, I wouldn't be here without you. Thank you. So gave me that spreadsheet editor. And at that point, I kind of begged Vandy to be mod of Classic Tetris, and Vandy approved because I had been around for so long at that point.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, after CTWC, well, actually, not after CTWC. After the qual week of CTWC, Rory and I were approached by Vince to say, hey, we're doing this thing online for the first time. It would be very cool if we had some statistics.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. And they noticed that I was quickly updating the spreadsheet, and Rory was running Elo, and it just seemed like a good fit that have both of us work
Yeah.
together on the stats, and that's really what put us in touch. Was Vince reaching out to both of us and saying, "All right, well, let's make some statistics."
Right before you started working for CTWC, I think
Mm-hmm.
most people know you from the online facts during the CTM broadcasts.
Yes, that's also true. Right. So I was they started around that time. That's right.
How did that start, and why did you decided to share those online facts?
Well, at the time, I felt like I was this casual fan for so long, right? I thought, okay, what can I do to I'm already watching this for, and at that time, CTM broadcasts were 8-hour affairs or 6 to 8 hour affairs, right? So I'm like, all right, I'm sitting here 6 to 8 hours. What could I do, in the setup time in between matches? What could I do to keep myself to provide something, I guess, for the community? It's a podcast approved thing to say, but otherwise just to keep myself occupied during that time, right? So I guess that started then, and I got put in touch. I joining that Discord in April. I was hovering around Elo Rankings and the match database and seeing some of the things that were available there. So I created a spreadsheet that I could copy and paste the data in, and it would spit out a online fact ready to go straight to Twitch chat, almost like an automated thing, except I had to copy and paste and use the drop down menus that Rory had created.
So pretty much you selected the two players that were playing against each other, and you got head to heads. You got pretty much every information when they played against each other, what the score was between them, and the results and all that.
Yeah, the match results. Yeah, we didn't have scores, but other than that, I was able to pull a lot. And I also started adding databases of who had won CTM before and highest place finishers and that kind of thing. And again, that started drawing from my old work habits. That was something I had to do for work, and then it's like, oh, I know how to do this. Let me do this for Classic Tetris. See if there's any interest. And it turned out a lot of people did enjoy it. For people were like, where's the online facts? If I would miss a match or something, or if I had to go to the bathroom or something and I missed a start, online facts, any online facts for us, Pumpy? And I was like, oh yeah.
But all the information you gathered for the online facts was from the Elo ranking or a match database.
Yeah, I was doing nothing else. I was just stealing the work that Chris Forrest and Rory had done beforehand, right? To put that in, and of course, it shouldn't be understated here that this was also the time of the pandemic when I really dived in, and I had a lot of free time on my hands in general. Just so happens when you are not driving, you have more time to do things. So that was one thing that all the pieces clicked. The online facts were able to start. Yeah.
We mentioned you joined the CTWC 2020 team as Statician alongside Rory. Did other people also join that team, or was it just the two of you?
It was mostly, I think, entirely me and Rory for the first year. We had Chris, all the judges, Chris's, who were around, who had done similar things before. There was some statistics done in the in-person CTWCs as well. But those were much more, we have a question, can we find an answer in time? Is it worth pursuing? Kind of a producer role. So there was judges around, and judges had edit access to sheets and things that were going on. But mostly it was Rory and I doing the formulas and calculations and crunching all of that and getting it to not just the commentators, but we also had a public version. So that the public could follow along if they didn't know a player. Which was likely to happen in 2020 when it's online and people haven't watched as much Tetris as you or I.
Well, is it different to make information public to an audience like we see with most CTWCs, that they only watch the World Championship and they don't follow the tournaments that the community are organizing, like a Classic Tetris Monthly or the Classic Tetris League? Do you provide different information for them than you would do if you would provide information for community members who knows what's up?
No, even the folks who know what's up, there's so much changing all the time now. I don't think we haven't really reached a stable point. Since that 2017 era or before, right? That I think that I would probably keep with most of the same material. Yeah, maybe it's interesting. Maybe there's a way I could shift it up. But I think in general, that just because the landscape changes. So, I mean, ELP has a max out rate, and that was
I
supposed to
know.
happen. Yeah, I got to shout out to ELP. But if we, right,
Welcome
but like,
to the post-apocalyptic world of classic Tetris. El Python has a max out.
I mean, that's it, right? I mean, 2 months ago, if you had told me ELP had a max in 2021, I don't know if I would have believed you, right? And
Yeah,
now,
exactly.
and congratulations, ELP. And I was there celebrating with him. But yeah, I mean, that's how quickly things change. So I think even people who are tuned in, watching, who are just watching, right? It's not
Yeah.
necessarily not checking Discord 24/7, having channels unmuted and getting every notification or something. Then if they're doing
Yeah.
that, why am I even here, right? So I'm
Yeah.
trying to reach that middle ground of people who do watch but maybe aren't as plugged in.
Do you think the landscape will be stable on the top of the mountain player-wise? Do you think it will change the coming
Oh,
years with rolling coming up?
I mean, you answered it. I mean, it's changing. I mean, there's so much that about the game itself that the fundamentals are being challenged, right? Tetris efficiency. Yeah. We had a lot of talk about Tetris rate over the last 4 or 5 years, and now if nothing changes with the hardware or the cartridge or anything, I mean, Tetris rate is maybe going extinct, right? Because you're able to play on kill screen. We have PVs now that, PVs used to be a measure of efficiency before level 29, right? And every now and then, if you're lucky, you get a Tetris on 29 on top to top off that PV, right?
Yeah.
But now, players pushing it with tapping to 34, 35, 36. And what is the record now? 45 or 54 or something with tapping. It's insane. But now you have that record with tapping, and then rolling is just like unlocking further potential on the kill screen. That I think instability. If the scene was stable, it was 2017 or earlier. So I think now that there's constantly people pushing each other, and we might reach a period of stability in 5 years or so, but I don't think it's going to happen quite soon.
What do you think that the matches will look like in the near future with rolling coming up?
Yeah, with rolling, I think that you'll have a little bit of a discussion about what do players want the future of the game to be, right? Do you want it to be a measure of efficiency within a certain number of lines? Do you want the game to be a measure of how fast you can perform techniques, right? Is it a original ROM only? I think there's definitely discussions to be had once we get there, right? Once the game has fully changed into a almost rollers only paradise, that I think that there may be questions to answer there. I don't know the exact answers, and everyone's going to fall a little bit differently. But I think that on some level people do enjoy the efficiency. So there's definitely things discussed to address that. Like a line cap is the most popular idea right now, where you cap the lines at 330, 100 lines of kill screen, and then the game stops playing, or the next piece just auto falls and glitches the game out, and your score locks. And that way you have 330 lines, score the highest score, right? Whereas right now it's currently, theoretically anybody could have as many lines as they want to until level 255 sometimes, right? Sometimes it's a little more, a little less, depending on the frame. So I don't know, right? So there's certainly discussions to be had once rolling is a little bit more solidified as firmly, like if you're a top tier player, you are rolling, right? Once it gets to that point, I think when those discussions will happen.
Most top tier tappers are transitioning to rolling right now. I see a lot of DAS players are transitioning to rolling right now. It's becoming the matter of playing the game on a high standard. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think the players are in charge of the changes that needs to be made to a Tetris match, or do you think that the tournament organizers are in charge? We are definitely in need of some changes to the matches if this continues the way it does.
Yeah, probably. I mean, are we? I don't know. I think what you'll see happening is that you'll have different organizers do different things, and whatever works will work, right?
Yeah.
I would not be surprised to see really a level 29 start tournament take off in the next year or so, right? Where you start on level 29, which requires a modified ROM, right? So already we're like getting into that territory. But I think that, that's entertaining, has the potential to be quick or be a marathon, depending on how good the players are. And that could be quite interesting. Now, is that the meta of Tetris? I don't know. I don't know how long it takes to get there. But in terms of organizers versus players, I think you definitely listen to your players if you're a good organizer. So I think if the players are asking we want a marathon game, then I think you'll get it. And if the players are saying, hey, we want an efficiency game, you'll get that. So if you're a good organizer. And, it doesn't have to be right now. We're in a still pretty glorious moment where everyone's in agreement about what a Tetris match looks like. I mean, you've had guests on the podcast suggest things like, best of 37 or something. 21, 30, right?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, right. So, and that's certainly one opinion, and if an organizer wants to host that, they're welcome to, right? So, and we just had a best of 99 since that, right? Since that interview, we had a best of 99 series, right?
Yeah, Ben Mullen and Lewis Cooey went against each other, and I think Havalafagus and Hydrant Dude had a best of 69, I believe.
I think so, and they started with level 29 starts, and they're both rolling to prep. We're rolling to prep for CTWC.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, I don't know. I think that since I've joined this scene has been in a state of change, and I think that it will continue for the foreseeable future. There's no signs that it's stabling.
Yeah, but we pretty much joined the scene around the same time. But it's like you said, it's the lower tier where we are at are even there. It's not stable. Look at CTL, the Classic Tetris League. Look at Division 8. Look at Division 7. We spoke a couple of days before recording this podcast. We did a restream together, and I said to you, I'm in CTL tier 7, as it's called right now. But there are max out players in CTL tier 7, and if you look back, maybe a year, maybe even less, a max out player in Division 7, as it has been called back then, was rare. I think the highest PB you would have was 700k, 800k max, but a max out player in Division 7 was rare, and now you see them everywhere.
Yeah, I know. Honestly, I'm not even sure. I'd have to check. Was there even a Division 7 a year ago in CTL? I mean, I think it was. But, you know what I'm saying? They added new divisions as this thing was growing. And, the max out players growing lower and lower. Right now, there's a Division 9 player I just saw right before hopping on to chat with you. A Division 9 player with almost 700k PB, right?
Yeah, that player has a higher PB than I have, and I'm 2 tiers higher than that player.
That's right. So again, all the shout outs to CTL, to CTM, to everybody who's KTF, everybody organizing these events right now, because there is so much change happening that it's difficult. You have to make these tough decisions, what it is that you're going to cater to.
Yeah, but it's not KTF anymore. It's Tetris Friendlies.
Tetris Friendlies. Okay, sorry.
The Kingsman part has been removed a couple of months ago.
Oh my god, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that shows you how much I pay attention to. No. We got to cut that one. There we
go. They are friendlies. It's not for Elo, so why would you care?
Oh, no, that's not true, actually. I put all the friendlies into the match history and have for a whole year now, so...
Only the matches that has been happening on Kingsman channel or on the Burb Wizards channel, or also the friendlies that have been... Yeah.
The unsanctioned friendlies.
Unsanctioned friendlies.
Yeah. There you go. I'll use the Kingsman term. Yeah, it kind of still looks like Kingsman's on the belt. I don't know. I'm going to have to debate you on that emote. But I think it's still KTF. Okay, anyways. But I've been adding LATAM friendlies. Any friendlies that happen. I think I reported some matches for you. I don't know why it was friendlies, but the Benelux and Mexico Cup, right? We put those in as friendlies. I don't know why you count those as friendlies instead of Elo, but whatever, Frank. Right? You twist my arm, and I'll put them in as friendlies. And yeah, I mean, also more importantly than that, the DAS tournaments that have happened in the last year. That's something that didn't happen before 2020.
Yeah,
we had 2 DAS tournaments, and those were added. And yeah, I mean, there's certainly a place for friendlies to be recorded in the match database. I'm a big fan of those. Do I watch every episode? Sorry, Kingsman. No, but I do try to when I can. Yeah.
we need to go back to CTWC because
Sure.
this year for CTWC 2021, you were the lead statistician. CTWC crew, Vince Clementi, Adam Cornelius, and Trey Harrison were obviously happy with the job you did in 2020. So, did you get a promotion for 2021? Is that how we can see it, or is it now you did lead the statistician team? Did you have any other team members on the team, or was it just you?
Yeah, I mean, it was just me. I just wanted to give myself a promotion. So there it is, right? So I was really the only person in 2021. Game Scout actually was interested and then got involved doing other things with CTWC. He did help me out with one. I needed him. Game Scout was working on a CTWC related project, and I needed some help real quick. I just didn't have the time to do the data management that week, and so he helped me out with one column of data. Otherwise, everything else. And I'm not trying to put Game Scout down. Game Scout was great. Thanks for doing that. But so I was the only statistician person. Yeah, that's right.
How different was it from the year before?
It was easier, right? I knew what was going on. I knew what to expect. I was that person. This year in particular, I was last year a little bit, but this year I was heavily in the Discord channels, and I was definitely not producing anything, but I was there in case there was a question for me. I could quickly get an answer to the commentators, and it seemed like the commentators knew I was a valuable resource, to be able to answer those things. And in addition, they looked at the spreadsheets and looked at the stat sheets this year and used those. But as far as the process of collecting the data and managing it, because the structure was in place, what Rory had already done, I only had to tweak a couple formulas and redo it, and that took maybe a couple days to really get it tidied up and ready for a new fresh coat of paint for 2021. So, and then just variously whenever people had new PBs or whatever, you had to update those so that people had the hottest information.
Yeah, but was all the information that you gathered for the commentators or for whoever, was that made on the spot, or did you do a lot beforehand?
Oh, it was all beforehand, just about. I mean, I would work probably the week up for each weekend and just making sure that information is correct, right? And yeah, I mean, what was it? 16 players a day, 32 players a weekend. A lot of things that each of them have incredibly different stories and backgrounds. So updating those where it made sense. Yeah.
And then you went through all possible matchups.
Well, not all possible matchups. That's a little too far. I had to drop down menus ready so that the commentators could search whatever matchup ended up happening. It's too many with double elimination, too many possibilities. So
True.
Top 8, I made sure everything was working right and it was really optimized. And that's one thing I'm happy about. Like it did run very quickly. I took about 30 seconds or so to process compared to last year's, which took.
But were there times that you needed to get information on the spot?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. CTWC was super interested. Adam and Vince, super interested in any time there was CTWC records, right? CTWC kind of now, I wouldn't call it a measuring stick, but in a way it kind of is, right? So you have these tent markers that everybody stopped and paid attention to CTWC this year, right? So a CTWC first meant quite a bit, right? So
a lot.
Right. And of course we saw, I mean, these aren't spoilers, no one's getting spoiled by this, but the double 1.3 game, right? Immediately I was like, all right, this is a world record here. It broke this record as well. Obviously CTWC record. Just being there to confirm some of that stuff that maybe, producers are around and in the community, but do they know every single record that happened yesterday and the day before,
Yeah.
Right. So being there and just being that reliable source of information, that if I said something, I think I only made like one mistake the entire couple weekends. So I'll take that.
But is that also where the spreadsheet for the world records came from? That you had everything in one place?
A little bit, not really. That one's kind of started on its own. It was something that was mentioned quite a bit in the World Records channel on Discord, that maybe it would be nice to have a track record of every single world record. That you could have a world record progression for all the major categories. So that was mentioned, I think, like in April or May or something. And at the time, I was working on my dissertation. I was like, "There's no way I can't. That's a good idea. Someone else needs to do it, right?"
Yeah.
But then July rolled around, July and August, and I had a weekend or two on my hands, and I said, you know what? Let's get a bunch of people together. Some people who like statistics, but also like history, right? Who like world record digging. Let's put this together. And as of this weekend now, there's a Discord for that too, even where we're trying to flesh out all the missing gaps. That spreadsheet even has a couple neat features now that you can search by the player, see what individual player, what records they have set.
Yeah.
You can look at their world records at a specific date. But in addition, it helps to alleviate some of the work happening in the world records channel. Eric is great, and Eric is tracking all the like sort of B-type or a specific play style world records, right? He's keeping track of those. But now, if a big world record change happens, there's another resource for that.
But how do you start digging it down? You start obviously with the current world records, and then I think you spit through all the Discord's channels for the previous world records. But then there is a time where you have everything before Discord.
Right. I mean, it's so with anything with history, right? We're trying to find the most accurate depiction of what happened, right?
Yeah.
And in 10 years from now, we might have, well, I actually maxed out in 1997, and here's my tape, right? Like, literally could happen, right? And if whether or not, then we have to evaluate that, right? So it could literally upskew any narrative that we try to create from this point. So part of my priority when I started that was that we get everything from this point onward recorded, right? Yeah. That was goal number one, right? We need a space for this to go that we draw a line in the sand a little bit and say from this date forward we know is accurate. We know, at least according to everything that we with the Discord and people, with it being the game that it is and the popularity it has now.
Yeah.
And looking backwards now, Kataru is involved. We have a huge amount of folks who are digging through Discords, digging through forums, digging through posts, and we even have depictions and notes so that you can see exactly, this was a claim score, this is a screenshot level proof score, this was talked about as maybe happening. We have that on a number of things where streaming wasn't what it is today, so there's maybe not the sort of standards of record when you get back. Right, and Thor claiming a max out even, right? We have that in the official score world record progression, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's important so that people can have this sort of history of what's been going on. And even though it's just a bird's eye history, just looking at the world records, obviously there's a bunch of things that happen every day that aren't world records, right? That are also very valid and important. But being able to go back and say, okay, this really was one of the best players at the time. A year ago today, for instance, Joseph held, well, not today, but okay, a year and a month ago, Joseph held almost every major world record category, right?
Yeah.
Which is, again, insane to think about now because there's so many different people who are involved in the world record, right? If you look at any of the world records now, it's a smorgasbord of all the top 5 to 10 players, each holding their own record at the moment, right? And that could change again in a week or so, who knows?
Can't tell anyone that there is one player who is in charge, who is the best in classic Tetris, who has all the records and all that. Because if you look at it, the world champion, Dark, isn't even the number 1 in the Elo ranking. It's his brother Pixel Andy. The number 1 in the Elo ranking hasn't got the highest score ever gotten in classic Tetris, 1.6 million by Hufflepuffus.
Right.
It's the top of the pyramid is getting wider.
It's more diverse. Yeah, it's a wider. It's not It's not right. It's not one person dominating. Now that being said, I would say that I don't think anybody wants to play dog, like, and thinks nobody says, okay, I'll get dog, one every 2 games even, right? I don't know. Maybe folks are that confident at the top. But there's just people who are specializing in more and more things. The rollers are going to have the world record high scores, right? And it's like you were saying, there really is I don't think, at least not yet, a sort of dominant player who owns all the records. It might happen in a year. Who knows? We might just be in a transition period right now, and then a year from now, oh, it was stupid of us to think that Richie didn't have this insane, Richie Ruins didn't have this insane progression. We saw it happening and just missed it, right? Who knows? Who knows?
You are also part of the research team for the upcoming documentary, The Best of Five, the Classic Tetris Champion, a documentary directed by Chris Higgins, who was on the show last year during the 6th episode of this various podcast. To talk about the upcoming documentary. We got the blessing from Chris to talk about everything we want from the doc.
Yeah, so thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris, for that. How did you get in contact with Chris, or how did Chris contact you?
Well, it started with CTWC 2020. We had bumped into each other a little bit, just working same spreadsheets. He was a judge and I was the statistician, but we traded things, and every now and then he would reach out to say, "Hey, is this a record so and so in 2020?" And we chatted in DMs. And okay, actually, I was in a Twitch stream of his. Yeah, he was chasing PBs and also promoting his docu-series, right? This was at the time the Kickstarter was still going, I think, or had just wrapped, or still heavy in the promotion era of things.
Yeah.
Still lockdown and pandemic and everything as well. I joined a Twitch chat of his. He said, "Actually, Pumpy, you're just the person I was thinking about seeing. I'm glad that you're here." Oh, okay. Hey, Chris, what's up?
Yeah.
Slide into my DMs, Chris. Let's talk. And he told me that he liked the work that I did with the online facts and liked the spreadsheet collection that I was doing. And he said, "Can we do this for all of CTWC? The entire history of CTWC?" I said,
Yeah.
He's like, "Well, actually, just up to 2014, because that's what my documentary is about." I mean, okay, that sounds a lot more manageable. Yes, all right, I'm interested. And at that time, I had, in January, so a month prior to that, I think it was February or March when he and I first started talking.
Yeah.
In January, I'd set up this insane Classic Tetris Gauntlet spreadsheet that tracked the transition scores, the top out scores, the average losing scores, the average transition scores, the average scores with no early top out for every single player. And this would range from players with 600, 700k PBs all the way up to Dog and Andy competed in it, for instance, and Fractal, right? Some of these top tier players. So I had made this spreadsheet, and I said, "Well, take a look at this, Chris. Take a look at this gauntlet spreadsheet. Is this kind of what you're looking for, except for with CTWC?" And he looked at it, said, "This is perfect." I said, "Oh, okay, sweet.
Okay,
like, if you could do that, and we track all of the scores from everything that we have, and we create as much of the history as we can."
Yeah.
And he admitted that not every single game footage survives. But he said, "If you would be interested, we want to have these online facts ready." Okay, so I've been talking all about the process of setting that up. But the purpose for it, not just to have it for the docu-series so he can say a line, or the voiceover can say a line about, right, this is a high score for the time, right? He has the commentators of James Chin and Chris Tang in the docu-series who are calling the matches that have been re-upscaled through Max.Club to have high quality audio. And just a few weekends ago, they recorded. And,
oh, wow. Nice.
Right. So they needed a spreadsheet, much like the CTWC spreadsheet, that had that information ready to go. So they could see the history of these players. They could see the PBEs at the time that were known. They could see the qualifying scores from past CTWCs where available. They could see the average transitions and top out scores. So that way they could get in a frame of mind. It's like, oh, okay, Jonas is consistent 600, 700k at this point, right? You can just count on Jonas to reach that score, right? That's important information to know when you're commentating after you just commentated a CTWC 2020 that broke records in CTWC histories, right? To be able to scale back mentally. So that was kind of the goal of having those statistics. So you wouldn't see like, oh, well, Jonas got a 400k transition and just be like, oh, well, that's like 300k below what's possible now, right? 300k below that, right? So it was trying to go against that narrative, to create the narrative at the time. And of course, Chris Tang was there in 2014, but that's not, love Chris Tang. He said, or at least from what I've heard from Chris Higgins, said that, like, it's going to be like he's seeing these matches for the first time, right? Because it's been so long, right?
I can't remember what I did in 2014.
I can't remember what I did a year ago. I can't remember what I did yesterday, honestly. So Chris, so having the statistics helps get back into that frame of mind. Oh yes, there's a rematch from 2013, just 1 year ago, right? And that was at a point in time where the only things that were happening online in terms of matches was the Ben Mullen Tiny Chat matches. Do you know about these?
I don't know about these. No.
So James Chen and Chris Tang getting into the mindset of having those online facts. In addition, we would have the world records at the time that were known, right? So Score and Cap really was just starting to take off. Right? The rumors are like, we got to be able to uncap the score. So at the time, it's like, okay, these people had this PB, right? So what my role was, I viewed footage, both the public footage that's out there, so we could gather as much information from that, and also some private footage. Some honestly, it's B-roll footage. It's really not stuff worth releasing. It is like, here's a player's face, right? You can't see the Tetris field at all, and the Tetris field wasn't captured. But if you watch the B-roll footage and you hear, okay, Quaid tops out with 650, and you're like, oh, okay, that's useful information, right? Yeah. So it was most of that work was, once I had the spreadsheet set up, was going back and I was like, I got to sit down and skip around and watch these matches, or I skip around on the footage that's available of the Tetris games, and then for the B-roll, like literally, all right, I have to listen for 2 hours now, just try to catch any score update, because anytime you what was happening at the time, Adam Cornelius was calling some of the earlier matches, and he would call out transition scores, right? That meta was already existing, right? So because it's not 2010, right? It was 2014. So hearing the transition scores, you just never know when that's going to happen if you can't see the game field, right?
True.
So so that really was it. Higgins was very happy to hear, happy to see once he got the finals. There's a few matches that are spotlight matches for the docu-series that he wanted to especially make sure were accurate and right. So we checked all that. And I provided as much of the details as possible. And it may have even been Chris, who was another one of those people who said, hey, it'd be nice to have a history of world records, or history of the exact scores, at some point. Chris may have planted the seed, but a lot of people have been asked.
Did you use any external sources, or did you just use only the footage that Chris had?
Classic Tetris has been great about uploading all the old matches onto YouTube. So of course I used if it wasn't Classic Tetris, one of these off-brand, one of the people that they hired to stream, right?
Yeah.
I would use their footage. As much as because most of the time that had the gameplay and everything properly. 2014 was an interesting case because that was the first year that CTWC said, right, we don't want to hire anybody, we want to do it ourselves. Yeah. And OBS was just starting to happen, so there was a couple of weird video glitches that were going on. So so that was a lot to sort through and figure out. But for the most part, I would say 80% of the data itself came from public.
Did you use the same time of spreadsheet that you used for CTWC 2020 or for CTWC 2021?
The layout was very similar. Yeah. In terms of the commentator sheet, but the background was completely different. It was structured after the gauntlet sheet I made that had multiple columns for each game had 4 data points that had the top outs of both players and the transition scores of both players. And honestly, I only recorded transition if there was an 18 start, because that was the meta by 2014. There was very few 15 start transitions.
So in a way, it helped that both Chris and James already knew what to expect from you as you provide information to them.
Sure. Yeah, I haven't. Apparently, it went well. I haven't heard any negative things, so that's good. And I'm looking forward to viewing the docu-series once it comes out.
But how much time did you spend on the research?
I had a contract. So there was a limited amount of time I could do. It's not on my computer in front of me, but I did track all my hours and everything.
Oh yeah.
I can't recall the exact number, but I think it was about 5 hours of spreadsheets, 5 to 10 hours of spreadsheets, and then the majority of it was making sure the footage is accurate. And then the last little bit was like, okay, here's the forum post and how the world records were tracked at the time.
Yeah.
This is what was known. So.
But how do you? I think it's still a relevant question. How do you manage all the time you want to use for your work? You got promoted, so you're a doctor now. You have a wife, so she needs time. You do for the Elo ranking. You used to do the research for Chris. You do research for the world records for the world record spreadsheet. How do you manage the time?
That's a great question. Well, first off, my partner is in the Discord. She's there, and just make sure that I don't spend too much. No, I'm just kidding. But she, anytime I make an announcement to everybody, she's like, "Hey, that was you," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, that was me." Yeah. But I won't reveal usernames or whatever. But she's hanging around.
My wife is too, but only on CTM, not even on the Discord where I'm most active in.
Oh well, not been a lot.
Shame on her.
Yeah. Oh no. And I think she's in one more Tetris Discord now, but I won't say which. But anyways, so yeah. I mean, honestly, Frank, I have always been really good at managing my time. Starting in my undergrad, after my freshman year, I had this sort of epiphany that I could be this really organized person, and starting by my junior year, it got a little. I almost was like, do I need help? Do I need help with this? But I was scheduling out every single hour of my day, every half hour. I have a routine and what I want to do during this time. And, of course, social gatherings and social events would happen. So I would shift things around, right? But in general, I knew what I wanted to do each week and knew how to allocate time appropriately. So, and even to this day, I'm teaching universities now, 2 universities, and imagine that, right? You have to be super diligent and organized in order to really be effective at both of those, and then do everything else that we've talked about and still have to talk about. So yeah, I mean, part of it is just having a healthy work life and at the time school balance too. And now I'm no longer in school, it's just work life balance, and scheduling that out and being as efficient as you can when you are dedicated to something, right? When you're like, all right, this time I'm going to work on, well, for instance, this morning I updated the PBs for Elo.
Yeah.
So that took me about 30 minutes to get it there and to make it tell the people, hey, I updated your PB. Is this accurate? Right. Yeah, so it took about 30 minutes, and then after that, I immediately played some video games, right? And then after that, it was, all right, let's go to the grocery store, right? So, I just, am that sort of rigorous, and maybe it can get stressful when a lot of things are happening, of course, but other than that, I've been able to be really successful in some ways because of it.
If you get something new, either it's private or it's in the Tetris world, how am I going to do this? Or do I need to stop other things, stop other projects to make that new project work?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, I stop projects when needed. Yeah. If something's not working, you realize the time's not working out. Yeah. I mean, totally. I mean, that's part of it, right? You only have so much time. So some things that I refuse to lose time to, time with my wife, right? If I lose that, it's like, it's not worth it. And, time to be able to do the music things that I do. If anything encroaches on that, that's when I draw the lines. Okay, I'm going to not work on it. I need to do these other things that are important to me.
I think we're same-minded because I have the same motivation.
Oh, really? Nice.
I feel like if I didn't start the podcast, I wouldn't be around the community anymore.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh. You would retire from the community if there wasn't a podcast?
And don't get me wrong, I love doing the podcast and I won't quit. I won't quit doing the podcast. But I'm a person that if I like something for 2-3 months and then I move on to something else. So I paid like €500 to get my both PAL setup and my NTSC setup. And then I do it for 2-3 months and then I move on to something else.
Right.
So now I'm fully into Animal Crossing and to the perfect Grand Theft Auto defined trilogy, the edition,
yeah,
whatever.
No problems whatsoever. You're right.
No problems whatsoever, but I do love the game, so it's the only sole reason that I'm playing it. But
Right,
I'd rather
and they
spend.
got rid of the other version, right? They had you used to
I
be able
played them
to.
on the Switch, so that's basically because I used to have a game PC that's broken, so I do everything
Right.
from a laptop, and it can handle restreams, and it can handle Tetris, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And it can handle recording a podcast and editing a podcast and all that. But I play everything on a Nintendo Switch, so that's the
Mm-hmm.
sole reason why I play that game. But I don't watch CTM live. I rarely watch CTL. I rarely watch the Tetris friendlies. I never watched the Monday friendlies live.
Oh, rip, yeah.
I didn't watch CTWC.
That's pretty late. Yeah,
I didn't watch CTWC live for the most part because I feel like time with my wife, time with my daughter is more important to me than sitting behind my laptop or watching Tetris on my TV. So I watch the VODs back during the morning, during my lunch break, and all that. So I'm up to date with the community, but it's not my main priority.
Yeah, that makes
of
total
having
sense.
live.
And like part of I'm really fortunate in the work that I do, right? I teach classes, but a full-time course load involves a lot of time outside of the classroom, right? So that means that how I schedule that time outside of the classroom is very flexible. So I'm able to do my own research in music, and
Total Radness! Yo, this is Steve DeLuca of Total Radness, home of the Tetris World Order.
Bringing order to a chaotic world.
Ready to get rolling on the right side? Dominate the D-pad with a goofy foot controller. Visit TotalRadNES.com to score a controller modded by the inventor, me. We've also got TWO gear, CTWC approved hardware, and a ton of additional retrospective madness. Tune in to twitch.tv/Total Radness to watch Quaid and I take the BLV to 11. Also, don't miss the other homies at Aaron Jazamoki for the Boom Tetris house parties with the Kitchen Dwellers. And at Classic Vomps for those classic Tetris snubs. Be the best and keep it TWO for life.
We will return to the conversation with pumpyheart in a minute. But first, if you like the Peace Dependency Podcast, help us grow. Please share the podcast with every classic Tetris fan. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Peace Dependency. You can like our Facebook page, Peace Dependency Podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We will have all the podcasts uploaded at full length. Also, you can listen to the Peace Dependency Podcast on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, or your favorite podcast app. Join the Tetris Friendlies Discord server. Besides the fact that it's the place to discuss anything PDP, you can also participate in some lovely friendlies or put your Elo on the line in the various Elo battles. If you are on the Tetris Friendlies Discord server, make sure to ask for a PDP role so you won't miss anything. If you have a suggestion who we need to have on the next Peace Dependency Podcast, let us know through the socials or our Discord channel. Now, let's go back to the conversation with Pumpy, where we will be talking about him getting the ownership of the Elo ranking. All right, Pumpy, we have to congratulate you. You are the new owner, manager, whatever you want to call it, of the Elo rankings and all aspects that comes with it. Before we talked about getting the ownerships and the future, let's go a little bit back in time. How did you get involved in the Elo spreadsheet, and when was this?
Right, it would be the end of 2020. Rory and I worked together, as we said before, on CTWC 2020, and I wouldn't be, not that many people knew who I was, and Rory's like, who's this chap, showing up, okay, well, he seems to be good with spreadsheets and has these models going, and the online facts things are a good thing, and So he said, what the hell, we'll let Pumpy in. And I think it was December or January that he reached out to me and said, okay, you know what? Here's this Elo ranking, here's the match database, and sort of gave me a tour of how it worked via Discord. It's like, here's how things are connected. And I think at the time he was doing that just so that he had help. At the time, Chris Forrest was still helping out with the match database, and he still is around and still has edit privileges and that kind of thing. But he definitely was focusing in on PAL at the middle of 2020 onwards. Chris Forrest was focusing mostly on PAL, getting that spreadsheet up, and on CTWC itself, right, and getting CTech up. And all right, so Chris Forrest was juggling a lot of things.
It's a major part of CTWC.
Exactly, right. Especially this past year. Oh my gosh. Chris was all over the place. It was insane. And like you saw the behind the scenes. Chris Forrest he was everywhere. He was literally everywhere. Helping out both streams and everything. It was insane. So anyways, Rory was reaching out to me. He's like, hey, you seem interested in this Elo thing. I was talking about it in chat, even saying some things wrong about Elo, and he was educating me and stuff when I first started. And it was great. And then we got to working together. He showed it to me. He asked if I could do this one major thing at the time, which was there's this end of the month clean out that used to happen. We would take all the old matches, and what was coming in as live data then becomes hard data, where instead of it being connected to a sheet, it exists within its own cell. And so I helped out making sure that process went smoothly. And then he took a little break. I think it was, I didn't look back at the exact date. Maybe
I tried to look it up, but couldn't find it anywhere.
Yeah, I don't think he announced it too much publicly either. But it was either February or March of this year.
It was the time when you became CTM moderator.
Yeah, it was oddly around the same time, yeah. And he reached out via DMs and said, hey, would you mind doing this, like for a while? I want to go out to the mountains and no internet. And I said, yeah, sure, why not? The biggest lie he told me, I love you, Rory. This was so great, and it just burns in me. I love it so much. He said that taking over the match database would take literally minutes a week. Now, he did not specify how many minutes, so that's on me. I should have reached out. How many minutes are we talking here? Because I was like, okay, I'd put a couple of hours in on Sunday and everything will be fine.
It wasn't.
But yeah, not quite. I mean, it was at first, and then I got involved and started tweaking formulas to ensure everything was connected. Because I don't know if you've seen the most recent spreadsheet tour. Maybe you did in your prep for Rory. But,
I did.
There's at least 15 sheets that are connected that aren't like match reporting sheets, right? That are literally just like making this thing function and work. 15 or so sheets that are connected at this point, and at that time it was like 10 or so, but it's still up to 15 now. And so what I would do, I would go through, and he said, if you see any formulas that, from your background, if you want to implement them, go right for it, but don't touch the sort of Elo calculations, right? He said he wanted to have that, and I would just work with the match database. I said, okay, that's great.
Yeah.
So I took over and started doing that. Just that. One of the things that would happen from time to time, these import ranges when you're importing from multiple different sheets would break, and it still happens nowadays. But there's ways that you can try to mitigate that. For instance, for a time there was an import range of all the matches happening at one time.
Yeah.
So this is why they started doing the end of the month. Changing that live data to hard data, because if you're importing, like, oh my gosh, I can't even think about it, probably 100,000 cells at once, right? There's a lot that could go wrong there.
Yeah.
And so we tried to tweak it down and speed up, and of course some of the calculations and some of the imports, tried to standardize those. One of the things that I'm quite proud of during that time, I started reaching out to each of the organizers. I said, hey, is this reporting system working for you? Is there anything I can do to make it easier? And by May or so, Rory's still on break, but by May, everybody was reporting using Elo codes. So we no longer had like anybody coming in with, they didn't just put like Harry down or something, right?
Oh,
Who is Harry? Is it Harry Hong, Harry M? Is it some other Harry, right? Like we had it standardized that, okay, who the Elo people, what their codes are.
Yeah.
And at that time too, one thing that I noticed is that like the sort of memes about Elo's never gonna work. The sort of doubters started going away a little bit. I noticed that some of the top players were actually like referencing it in their streams, or I want number one Elo. Particularly Alex T and Tommy were both like very set on, we want the highest Elo ranking, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so it stopped becoming a meme around that time. I'm not gonna say I did all that. I think part of it is just by existing that long, it becomes standard. Other things I did, I went in and added Twitch names for everybody, so the people who don't report using the Elo names, that we had a Twitch lineup, so that everybody's Twitch IDs were in, or Twitch usernames. I created the scoreboard for the restreamers.
I love that.
Which is it's a bottom line, like a la ESPN, that pulls in recent matches. I think right now it's pulled for the past 3 days or so. Any match that's happened can pop up on your restream. All you have to do is just use it as a browser source on OBS.
You worked alongside Rory, and when two people work alongside each other, sometimes things aren't so smoothly. What was it like working with Rory? What were the things that didn't work in the end when you wanted to prove Elo, or what are the things that you both agree on when you needed to prove the Elo?
Well, Rory and I working together, he came back. I was managing those cheats by myself, and then he came back in July and implemented this really just nicely and really smooth PB conversion, right? So you can now have your PB history within the bot, Classic Tetris bot, impacts your Elo, right?
Yeah.
Which instead of it just being at the beginning, happens at the end. And honestly, it solves a number of issues. One part of Elo, one of the biggest flaws of Elo is that it's deflationary. So that means that a new player enters the scene, they play a match or two, and then they leave, right?
Yeah.
What do you do about the points that player like had, right? You know, those points are gone. If you are at the top of the league, right? If you beat that player who came in and was a novice, right, you don't get that many points, right? So over time, Elo tends to deflate.
Yeah.
If the only way that you gain Elo at the top is by beating other top tier players, right?
Yeah.
So there's this decaying effect to it. So one thing that the PB converter solves, the one thing the PB history solves, is that we pump points into the system, right? So that's a good thing overall. And that rollout happened really smoothly. I thought that was once so he got back, put that in. It was working really well. Now, that being said, I mean, there's some tweaks to be had, of course, right? This is still experimental. And as we were talking about earlier, rolling and PBs, like now, maybe it means a completely different thing than it meant even in July, right?
Yeah.
When he implemented that. Maybe PB means something different. So there is a PB cap of 1.35. It's been high a little bit from 1.3, but 1.35 now is the Elo cap. That's after points after that or PBs after that we're tracking, but it doesn't impact your Elo.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really well. And then pretty soon after that, because rollers were taking charge, right, and like people wanting to be rolling by CTWC in August, a couple people, prominent members of the community approached Rory and said, hey, you know that in other sports and in other games, you know, you can have multiple profiles. If I play with one character in Overwatch and then I play a different character in Overwatch doesn't think I'm as good as with both players, right?
Yeah.
So the analogy was drawn from that to the play styles in Tetris, right?
Yeah.
If I play DAS, I'm a different player than when I play Tap, and a different player when I play Rolling. And yeah, right. So that was where things sort of started with alts, right? This whole like conversation. Should we have I think they probably better proposed as profiles to begin with, right? A DAS profile or but like these sort of, that's where alt started. But I think one thing before we even get to that point, right? So that's like the first like alt discussion that's where things started happening, right? People, this Miles with a rolling profile and Hufflepuff with a rolling profile and other people too. I'm not just calling those two out.
Yeah.
If we go back to Arpad Elo's original creation, right? He was designing a system for chess, right?
Yeah.
He had a huge amount of databases of chess results to pull from, right?
Yeah.
Tetris is different. We hit 23,000 matches just recently, right? 23 matches recorded, 23,000, which seems like a lot, right? And it is a lot, right? If you go back to 2010, that's insane, right? 2010, we have one match, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and now we're at 23,000. That's a lot, but it's not as much as Elo was working with when he designed the system.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that there incessantly has to be a way to fine tune, right? That means we can't just look at the match results and say that's enough. We can put the hat on it, because then it's just who has the highest win percentage, pretty much.
Yeah.
It's not exactly that, but it clowns up pretty much the same. So the first major tuning that Rory did was adding that PB at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
And then the match results, if you win 3-0, is different than winning 3-2, right? You get more points if you win 3-0. Another important tweak with Tetris, right? Because we can simulate that there was 3 games played and you won 3 of those. That's more impressive than if you played 5 games and won 3, right?
True. Yeah.
And then the next one that's not that important. The other one, PB, getting started off, right? And then we also had the PB history, right? Those are 3 sort of things that Tetris Elo needs in order to speed it up to where at some point, all right, now it is perfectly flowed out. So I think of the rollouts with the biggest rub, and the thing that was different with the people with role profiles, were that you assumed a different PB on that profile.
Yeah.
Right. So Hufflepuffus at the time, in August, had a PB of 1.1, and Miles had a PB of 800k, somewhere around there, right? With
rolling PB.
Right, rolling PBs, and Miles at the time was a 1.2 player, and Huff a 1.3 player, right?
Yeah.
So they had lower roll PBs. And what Rory said, they have a lower roll PB, they get a different profile because they're scoring less points than they would normally if they were tapping, right?
Yeah.
And I, on the other hand, saw it just a little different. Just saw that these are players who get to 1.3 because they have the stacking capabilities. They know the game so well that this rolling, even though their PBs are lower, is a temporary setback. And Elo is self-adjusting, right? It self-corrects.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and there's not really much of a middle ground there between those two distinctions, because you either have a profile or you don't, right?
Yeah.
I pitched a couple times, having 2 sets of systems, but really I pitched it knowing that it would be a pain in the ass to set that up. Even as somebody who manages it now, me thinking about doing that, it's insane. It's a lot of work. But that was proposed just so that we had a way to examine both. Yeah. So I think we just disagreed on that, and whether one was more preferred or one not. And my thing at the time too, and I said, if Hufflepuffus wins 2021 with rolling, what will we think in August, right? And it's kind of odd because looking, with what happened, Hufflepuffus nearly won with rolling, right? And then we would have looked like egg on our face for the alts or something, right? Because so I think there is a case to be made, and it's something that you could definitely come back to in the future, that maybe there's more data that comes down to. But for what it's worth, Rory himself, I didn't pressure or anything. Rory has removed almost all the roll alts. I think all of the roll alts are removed. Last I checked, it was a thing that Hufflepuffus and Miles played worse with rolling for a little bit, and then they got better. So.
But don't you think that in a way it was a little bit more fair? They were open about it, that they wanted a role profile and to see where their skill was at the moment. Because we also had some players in the community who literally created a different account, played under a different name.
For sure. Mm-hmm.
I think in a way, I do agree with you should only have one profile. Doesn't matter if you're playing that stab role, and if you switch to a different style, that's your choice, and it's self-correcting. But I think also in a way that it's more fair for everyone to be public about it, that you have a different playing style profile, and that I think in the end it should merge, but that at that moment where you stand, then if you create an old profile, play under a different name, and then maybe it will never impact your main profile, because I think 9 out of 10 times alts aren't getting catched.
Yeah, and I mean, we do have a little, Rory and I had a little secret, like, this person's an alt. We heard from this person, or we think this person's an alt. Let's keep an eye on that. Check the capture, all the little techniques that we do to sort of sniff them out. But yeah, I think, so Frank, that is a 100% valid opinion as well, right? So everybody had all these opinions going on, that, you want to have things be public, and I think that the folks who wanted role alts did the admirable thing, right? This thing did become public, and that was one thing I'm happy with, right? That everybody was able to keep up with the discussion, and I, the whole time, was like trying to, here's what Rory believes, let me know if there's anything that's different, and here's what I think, right? And people just came down on different sides of that fence, because there's really not much of a middle ground. We can't like kind of have a role, right? You can't kind of have a profile that's like, I mean, you kind of one or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I mean, as far as like alts, I was watching CTM monthly. Tetris is doing the YouTube uploads, right? And I was watching those, and Vandy in July said something like, if you want to roll and get another Elo, just do it on an alt. Or maybe it was August, but it's just quite funny seeing everything that happened since then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the future, when we have more data, there is a possibility that people can have different profiles.
Yeah, why not? I mean, sure. I mean, as long as, but the other thing too, that we haven't mentioned this entire discussion, the burden of proof is different compared. So if we go back to Overwatch, right? And I'm just saying Overwatch. People who watch this probably don't even know. Well, Overwatch. Everyone knows Overwatch.
I know Overwatch. Don't watch it.
Okay, yeah, I don't watch Overwatch either. But there's different characters you play as on a team-based shooting, right?
Yeah.
And you have teammates, and each character has a different role to play within the team.
Yeah.
If we go back to that comparison, Overwatch developers, right, on the back ends of their servers know 100% what each person's player profile, which character they're using on their player profile at any given time, right?
Yeah.
If you flip that to Tetris right now, where does the burden of proof fall? Is a player a hybrid player as determined by the restreamer? Is it the player itself? Is it something else entirely? We just don't have the infrastructure set up. Take a player like Knight. Love you, Knight. Knight switches between dash and tapping in the middle of a match, right? Not even in the middle of a game. Not a true hybrid, right? But in between matches, it's like, okay, I'm going to dash the next game.
Yeah.
Okay. And so and that's great. Players should be able to be free to do that. And if you're being that, it's just I don't know where the burden of proof falls at the moment, whose responsibility it is to, for what it's worth, Miles and Huff and other rollers at the time who got different profiles, very honest about where they competed, made it very easy for us. But if to open this up to make it more rigorous and make it more viable for anybody to do that, it would take some finagling, and it would certainly be something I'm open to. But I would like, if I would like to have like a hertz measurement or something, right? Oh, you hit accurate, you hit above 20 hertz. Okay, you are rolling, right?
Oh, yeah.
And we don't have that data. No one's collecting that right now. It's like, oh, okay, you burst 20 hertz 50 times that game. Okay, you're a roller, right?
Yeah. Starting in November 2021, you are, I'm just going to say, the new owner of the Elo Rankings and everything that is attached to the NTSC Tetris Elo. People listen to the previous podcast with Rory might have picked up some signs that Rory was about to retire from the Elo Rankings, and a high chance that Rory's walking away from the NES Tetris community after he maxed out. But when did Rory contacted you about transferring the ownership from Rory to you?
It was probably 2 weeks ago, around November 10th or so, I would say. So after the podcast had come out, after doing the interview with you, he said, you know what, I am going to keep playing Tetris, I think, but I'm not going to do this Elo thing. And I'm not going to play Tetris competitively for at least a little bit. I want to take a break. And said, is it okay? Are you comfortable taking over for all the spreadsheets? And I, of course, said yes. At the time, the spreadsheets hummed around so smoothly.
Yeah.
Because all the tweaks that he and I have made that really we don't even touch it that much unless we want to add something to it. We're like, oh, we want to add CTWC odds. Like that's work to be done, right? We actually have to build those. But other than that, like in terms of the matches coming in and everything, you don't have to touch it too often. And so I said, okay, yeah, sure, I will take it on. And in less than 4 or 5 hours, all the spreadsheets were transferred over to me. And yeah, I mean, it was pretty sudden, but at the same time, like I listened to your podcast and we chat as well, so it wasn't too unpredictable. I don't think it was just when it happened, it happened.
And besides the database that we are going to talk about in a bit, what are the other things you want to change about the Elo rankings?
Well, first off, I want it to be more public. There's certainly the formula that we use is public knowledge. It's posted in the FAQ, but I want there to be more than one model. I think right now we have one model of Elo rankings, right?
Yeah.
I want that data to be available to everybody so they can build their own models if they want to, right? One thing Chris Bidwell said a number of times during CTWC, I love Chris Bidwell, I know he listens, so I'm giving him the shout out to there. He said that, Elo, I can't do it on my scratch of paper, right? Which I don't know. You can. It takes a lot of time, but so he has a point there. But it is possible. You have to do exponential equations and stuff. And you're like, oh, I don't want to do that, right?
Yeah.
But it's possible. But so I want instead someone like Chris Bedwell to have access to the entire match database quickly and write some scripts, write some code, and then bada bing, bada boom, you have a ranking system, right?
Your own ranking system.
Right, and you can tweak whatever you want, right? That's certainly something that would be desirable. That is not super easy in a spreadsheet right now.
Yeah.
It's much more, okay, here's the formula within the cell. That formula is what it is until we decide to change it, right? So, and to that end, I don't want it to be Pumpy's decisions on what Elo is, right? I don't want it to be just mine. Now, of course, I would like to preserve the official rankings, the official Elo rank as official gets, right? I want to keep those going, but at the same time, I've asked a couple people, "Hey, you want to help out? You're interested in statistical modeling? Let's find ways to improve the rankings as well." Because again, like we've talked about for the beginning of this podcast, it is such a changing flux happening right now that even having a ranking system whatsoever is quite impressive. That it even kind of works, right, with everything else going on.
Yeah.
And not by kind of works. I mean, it's like 95 to 98% accurate, I would say, for all the players. It's very accurate. But for it to even be that accurate right now is just a testament to what Rory has built. So I think like the first thing I want to examine once I get it time to do so is the PB change, because Rory implemented it and it works 10 times better than old Elo does. Right, 10 to 50 times better than it would with just the initial PB, because initial PB doesn't tell you that much about how quickly a player will increase their skill level or stabilize their skill level, like you and me, right? The first PB doesn't tell you that. Just because someone starts as a 50k player doesn't mean that they will stay there.
True.
The same as the other 50k players, right? So that's one thing I want to examine, is just see if there's a way that we can more tailor the formula to individual players, and maybe different. If somebody has improvement over 2 months, probably they need a different formula than the person who has an improvement over 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Then just see if there's something we can do there to more accurately help that in, because I think it's a good initiative and I think it's important, but I want to tweak that. That's like my first big Elo tweak that I want to dive into.
And you talked about the database. What's the deal with the database?
Right, so big news. I am working with Professor L, Dex4, Fractal, and more. We're gonna get the match database in the classic Tetris bot. It's a proper database, moving away from the spreadsheet management of everything. At some point in the foreseeable future, this could lead to a bunch of different improvements. It really just depends on how big the team gets and how much each member of the team is able to contribute. We want profiles on the CTM.gg to have each player's individual match history when you click on their name, right? Instead of having to go to a spreadsheet and wait for the calculations to load, it's a database that pulls that information right away. You can see their match history, their PB history, etc. Anything that, the win-loss record by extension, right?
And when was this process started? When was the idea created?
So I asked Rory, in July I was moving and he was doing the new PV converter, and it seemed like he was back for a significant amount of time. I said, okay, now this is a time he and I had talked about it. A bunch of people have said it. It was said even before the current spreadsheet started, right? It's like a proper database would be the best way in the long run.
Yeah.
So it's not like my idea or whatever, but it did start more fervently in August. I was like, okay, let me start learning about how to even begin to build this, because as you said earlier, my background is music, right? And my other background is data and spreadsheets, right? So building a database, even just learning out what SQL was, I thought it was SQL, right? So, so learning about how these databases are built and the language used to communicate with those databases. The database itself is not that complicated, right? It's like it's a single file or two, right?
Yeah.
The more complicated end is how do you interact with that database to pull quickly and efficiently the code that you want.
Yeah.
The line data, the results, whatever it is that you're looking for. And so I needed to learn on that end, right? So I've been dedicating time to that, just learning with that, working with Professor L to develop a working environment for me so that I can begin the processes, fixing any issues whatsoever that exist within the current database, being ready for, one thing that I had help with right near the beginning is Foiled Thrice went through and found all the matches that had 3 or more players in them, right? Because right now, currently the database, everything is arranged as head-to-head matches.
Yeah.
So we know, Tetris Friendlies, I didn't say KTF, Tetris Friendlies has 3-player matches, Classic Tetris Brawl, the first CTWC with an 8-player match, So we know that those things do exist and that those are important too, and we need to be able to have room for that in the database. But we also hadn't marked that, so Foiled helped out. With that, I went through, and I think it was Japan Light, right? And the Ben Mullen Tiny Chat. Okay, those aren't actually in the match database, but maybe someday we'll get those in. So all these things that had multiple besides head-to-head, we worked on that in August. I had a little bit of setback with working 2 jobs, but now we are more fervently moving ahead.
Yeah.
And honestly, having a website with that database and so connected, it's just important to growing the scene, right? The spreadsheets, we're hitting limits where formulas aren't being calculated because there's too many cells.
Yeah.
There's too many. Yeah, right. I think the theoretical limit of a spreadsheet is 20 million in Google Sheets, right? So we haven't reached 20 million cells. We're not close to that. But the amount of calculations that happen do hit a limit at some point. So even if you just put equals, if you reference another cell, so if I put A1 equals B2 or something, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a calculation, right? And that might be an important one, right? It might be necessary for something else. So we're running into issues with the sheets in terms of functioning, and now's as good a time as any to move to that database with the Classic Tetris bot.
I mean, the database spreadsheet is so slow.
Right.
It's not fun.
It's certainly not fun. I went through, and one of my first things, being with Elo, I went through and just disabled a lot of it. It's quicker now, but it's still not speedy. It takes a few minutes to calculate what someone's match history is, right? Which is not great. Yeah. So we need to move to something a little more sustainable.
How far is this project?
Probably like, I want to say 25% of the way there. So it's just getting off the ground, but it's certainly something that I'm committed to seeing to this end. I'd like to have, by the end of December, a prototype where things are working, and then maybe pivot into 2022, because inherently, one thing that I have the privilege, because I own the spreadsheets and I have a good working relation with all the major tournament organizers, the match reporting process may fundamentally change, right?
Yeah.
It won't be fill out your spreadsheet and get it into Pumpy by 5 p.m. or something, right? there might be a website to visit, and you put those in. Or if it's something complex like CTL, working with the back end of Greg's database and merging those together.
And I think one upside is that everything is available to the public. Now,
Right.
you can go to a website in the future to a database, and you can look up Surmaze, you can look up pumpyheart and see what they have done in Classic Tetris, what the PB is, what they won, and maybe in the future with titles they won, which if they wanted CTL, if they wanted CTM or whatever. But it's not. It's will be public on the interweb. Now you need to go to a Discord server. You need to go to that specific channel. You need to click on a link. You need to load a spreadsheet. You need to. You see where I'm going.
If you're like me and you visited the Elo Rankings enough, you just type Elo in, and you don't even get RPad anymore. Anything else about Elo, you just get the Classic Tetris Elo Rankings. So Google pops it up for you, right? Or Firefox or whatever your browser is. Right?
Yeah.
So no, I think having a hub for it, that if someone types ctm.gg/ and then it takes you to a website that has it, that's wonderful, right? The other thing too, I think it's important that you have just one site, right? That if people wanted to know, people who had completely disconnected to the scene but wanted to see the world rankings at the time, right? Who don't do Discord, which is a lot of what the more casual audience, right, not involved in the Discord, wouldn't know where exactly which channel it is, has a site that you can go to. Yeah, I think that's great.
You did more for CTWC. You were an official judge. You took part in restreaming the qualifiers on Classic Tetris 2, the Twitch channel.
That's right.
I want to take a look at the restreaming bit first. How different is it to restream a qualifier than it is to restream a match?
I mean, I just kind of went into it that in a match, you're trying to at some point, right? I'm not the most outspoken commentator when I restream matches, but when at some point there is a switch where, like, at this point you can tell the drama of the situation is changing, right? Yeah. So it's your job as a commentator for a match to get that switch. That's going to happen in every single match, right? You're going to have a person top out, right? They're going to top out with a highest score or lower score, and that's when the drama always at minimum happens, right? Of course, if someone's in a scary situation. When you're commentating a qualifier, right, none of that matters. None of that, right? The only thing that matters is if someone's on a hot pace to get a max out or gets that high score, right? To improve their current qualifier. Yeah. So instead, that means that you have a lot of dead time. And I think one of the things that I haven't done too many of, but something I'm definitely interested in doing more of. I did some of the Monday night chase downs with Van Dweller, where you look at where players are chasing their PBs, right? Yeah. And it's a show that goes on, and players try to get a PB, and if they get a PB, we all get excited and happy and pog and put them on the side saying that this person got a PB. So it's much the same vibe with the qualifiers, I felt. Yeah. I want to be a reassuring, calm present. Don't put any stress on the players, right? First off, right? I don't want anybody to be who's maybe listening. I don't know why you would if you were qualifying listening to me, but if you were, I definitely don't want to add to that, right? Yeah. It's already a stressful enough situation. You get 2 hours to try to beat, to try to compete among the best in the world, right? Yeah. On the other hand, there are dramatic situations, right? I mean, like, oh my gosh, they're close. Oh my gosh, there's a long bar hang or something, right? So you do have to call those when they happen, but they happen much less frequently. So my approach was, if I can get people in the booth to chat with, talk about what we've been seeing over the week. Coincidentally enough, I had a qual. This is also a part of CTWC stuff. I guess I should have talked about earlier, but I had a predictor last year in 2020 that was, I think, like 7K off of the final cutoff score, and everybody else's at the time was more off than I, and so a lot of people were like, "Oh, Pumpy knows some statistics." I got lucky, I think, a little bit, but I made one for this year, and part of me, I didn't get it to where it was where I was comfortable sharing it publicly. There was a couple formulas I had to manually check, and I didn't want to put it out there. Right? Yeah, I wanted everything to be automated and that people could just look at it. So I didn't get that. Didn't have time for whatever reason to get that out there. But I had that going though, right? So I'm looking at it. I'm like, all right, so it's going to be 2. I was the first person to say it's going to be 2 maxes and a high kicker. Yeah. and it ended up being higher than what I originally said. And so that's fine. I mean, right at the time, everyone was like, "Pumpy, that's crazy." You know, I think Vandweller was saying 2 max outs, but I said 2 max outs high kicker at 850. Right. Everybody else, then we examined their models, like, oh, actually, Pumpy's onto something. Right? Oh, we found something here. Yeah, right. And it ended up being what 2 max outs 966 or something.
Something like that. Yeah.
946, something like that. Pretty insane. And so I knew that information, but like players know that by the time I started calling quals on Friday, and it was pretty apparent by that point. 2 max outs is not necessarily safe to get in. 3 or more preferred, right?
Yeah.
And even 3 at the time, maybe not safe. So I knew that in the back of my mind, but like, I mean, players, they can figure that out on their own, right? That doesn't help them any bit to know. They already know within that 2-hour period what they need to do. They need as many max outs as possible to get in, right?
Yeah.
To get into the gold bracket. They want at least a max out to try to secure bronze bracket, right? And so like they already know that. I don't need to say that, right? It's not my job. If they want to know, they can go look. They can ask me beforehand. Aaron, Cool Ice Age, and who was else? Aaron and I think maybe Yusuf had a predictor that was going off, and then Aaron asked me. He had his predictor. And he's like, "Pumpy, what do I need?" I was like, "Aaron, you need at least." I wouldn't be comfortable with 3 maxes, but you need at least 3. He's like, "Oh, Pumpy, that's so rough." Okay, and then Aaron got a high seed and everything.
It's
pretty
the
well, top
seat.
16,
It's the seat he was sitting in. That's why he.
Right. Exactly. Right. And like he built his own. Right. So again, like players can ask me ahead of time. It's not my job while I'm calling the qualifiers to add to the stress. Now you talk generally about it, sure. You talk generally about the improvements that have happened from year to year, of course. And like next year, I would not be surprised at all to see the qualifiers shoot down. Right. We're going to be in person, and depending on how big the bracket, if it's in person, of course. But if it's in person and it's a 64-player bracket, I imagine, a lot of the top 64 players will be out there, but it won't be all of them like it would be like this year, right? When there's like no great excuses for missing it, right? So it will change, right, when you have a live thing, and maybe it won't shoot down all the way, or maybe it'll be an online qualifier with things happening. But anyway, either way, right? You just relax a little bit, get somebody else in the booth so that you don't just, talk about whatever you want to talk about. Actually stay on topic a little bit. And then just, I think I did about, Vince told me recently, let me check. Vince said 24 hours quals.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, that sounds about right. I think I did at least 16 and change from my recollection, but I did write them all down at 1.2.
Oh yeah.
So that's a long time, mate, to be talking. Right?
Yeah,
Even if it's just 8 hours of talking, even if it's just 2 hours talking to you, Frank. That's a long time. So.
Talking 2 hours to me, it's always long.
Right. Well, you already wrapped this up. No, I'm just kidding. But like,
I'm not wrapping this up.
You have But when you're in that situation, right, I brought Vicious Rhubarb in the booth. Peyton and I did co-commentary across the stream. That was awesome. He was calling things on on Classic Tetris, and I was calling things on Classic Tetris 2.
Oh, that's cool.
That was really fun. And Peyton and I, and Rhubarb and I, close friends too, so that was easy to do.
Most of the major players were showcased on the main channel on Classic Tetris. Do you think that on Classic Tetris 2, the heart of the community was shown, therefore the vibe in chat was different than from the main channel?
Oh, totally. I honestly, I think it wasn't that big. I think if you look at the numbers by the end of it, comparing the number of hours number of hours that Classic Tetris 2 was live compared to Classic Tetris, I think that the ratio of good players on channels, like it was fine. But on the other hand, I think Classic Tetris 2, people assumed the bad players were going there, right? And even maybe you assumed it just then, right? So therefore, the people who maybe are more memes of the community or more there to have a good time, there to score their best, and chase a PB, right? I think that happened a little bit more on Classic Tetris 2.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I think that it gained a reputation quite quickly that like people who were in the scene who knew about rolling, right? And who watched a lot of matches. They were going over to Classic Tetris too, and that's okay. That's totally fine. Totally, it was nice. It was nice to see some folks in chat who valued you.
You're also in charge of the CTM YouTube channel. You upload the VODs. Like we mentioned before, you have a busy life. You work. You have a wife. It's wife, and then you have your work. that should be the order. And then everything you do in music, everything you do in Tetris. How did you decide? Oh yeah, I can save Tetris, as Fendi calls it, and post the CTM VODs on YouTube.
Right. So the big thing is that they weren't being posted, right? It just wasn't happening. And I saw with CTM moving towards a funded prize pool, right? I saw a possibility that, hey, this YouTube thing does bring in some revenue. It is valuable material. People love watching it on YouTube, right? You've mentioned watching the VODs on Twitch. Well, that gives the streamer nothing, right?
Yeah.
I think they get a little bit of the ad revenue that pops up every so often, right? But it's pennies compared to the sort of ad revenue that you see on YouTube, or at least from my recollection of things.
It's terrible.
So right. So I said, okay, well then let's move them to YouTube, and I pitched it to Remainings, and to Van Dweller. I said, you know what? I'll put them on YouTube. I'm not going to be a video editor. I don't have time to fully, make all the thumbnails, to make the highest quality upscales. Like sometimes if the bitrate was bad, Remainings would replace frames and that kind of thing. I can't do frame. I could do it. I just don't want to learn it, right?
Yeah.
I could make a thumbnail. I don't have the desire to learn that and put the time into. But I can put the VODs up there, right?
Yeah.
And so even if it's just a few hundred people who watch a VOD, then it's better than no one watching it, or they watch it on Twitch and you get less. It contributes less. Said, is it okay? And Remainings and Vandy both said, absolutely, right. Getting the VODs up there is priority one, right?
Yeah. And people were asking for it.
They really were, right? People were coming. Why is there no uploads? Once the working relationship with Classic Tetris was changed, the monthly Tetris split off a little bit. Well, not split off. It just was off to begin with. However you want to realize that. But once they went back to their own Twitch channel, right?
Yeah.
The working relationship where Adam, I think it was, would download the VOD and then edit it and put it on the Classic Tetris channel, right? That changed, right? That relationship changed. So
true.
It was something that people were wanting and asking for. Like you said, they were missing from the Classic Tetris channel. And to be quite honest, it's done better than I thought on YouTube. My goal was to drop these VODs, like space them out a little bit. I think I started with August with the plan of not even putting the older stuff on there. Just like let it just be lost to the void, and they exist and they're on hard drives and that kind of stuff. But it wasn't priority to get those out there.
Yeah.
To me, I wanted to get caught up to the present as quickly as possible. Right?
Yeah.
So I started with August, and then was going to do September, and then with everything else going on, Stupid Tetris Monthly and Monthly Tetris taking a break for a month. That by December, okay, we're like up. And right in December, this is when this podcast comes out. December, everything is coming out as soon as possible. Right, December matches are coming out in December. Right.
Yeah.
That was my goal initially, and I think it's still going to happen. To be honest with you, but then they were like, "Oh, why not just put everything else up there?" Right. Oh, okay, why not?
Sure.
So
yeah.
I mean, it's a little more work, but other than that, again, so I mentioned not wanting to do work. Right? I wanted to do as little bit of time as possible.
Yeah.
I used the YouTube editor. It has a built-in editor where you can trim certain things. You can splice a little bit, but it will just jump cut between scenes, right?
Yeah.
And that's the sort of level of video editing I was comfortable with, where it takes about 15 to 20 minutes for each VOD to get those cuts, and to get them cut with it, even though it's going to be noticeable because it's a jump cut with music going on, right? It's going to be noticeable, but at the minimum, jump cut as smoothly as possible, while also just putting these matches out that people weren't watching. So in the lead up to the top 8 CTWC, we have all the Masters VODs that I'm aware of out there, right?
Yeah.
I think all of those are posted, and just a few hours ago I premiered the challengers, working through the backlog of challengers
Since the start
circuit.
of back on Monthly Tetris in December of 2020.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think the December 2020 VODs I have, but those were the 8-hour ones. So they take a lot longer I have to actually video edit those, right? So I haven't done I didn't do December 2020, so I guess I'm not that one. But
So
other than that, twist my arm a little bit here, Frank, but that's okay. No, I'll get those at some point. But in terms of quickly in 2021, Vandy partnered with Kibby, and they work together where they would have double streams going on, one on Monthly Tetris, one on Monthly Tetris 2. And once they were done, the semifinals and they would do the round of 16 and round of 8 on 2 different channels, and then the semifinals and finals on a single channel.
Yeah.
And so those are long VODs too, like 4 or 5 hours, but they're not the 8-hour megathon, right? So I've been working with those, and then starting in August, really, August through now, it was individual restream brackets. So you have your red bracket restreamed, your blue bracket, your orange bracket, your green bracket. And those are not the right orders, but you get those restreamed in different orders based on players' availability.
Yeah.
And those are great for YouTube, like an hour and a half, right? And then you trim it down, it's like an hour 15. I could watch an hour 15 of 3 matches, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can find time for that as opposed to the 8-hour megathon that I haven't quite decided how to deal with that yet. And a goal too is if I had more time, I think, or if somebody else wanted to take over it too. It's another thing that we talked about, that it's okay if somebody else wants to come in like tomorrow and say, hey, I want to do the video uploading, and I'm a video editor, I do this, blah, 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 here's what I want to do. That'd be great, right? Yeah, awesome. Here you go. Yeah, there's one thing I could let go of. And if all I did was get the VOD backlog up, that's perfectly fine by me.
Yeah.
But if I did have a bunch of time suddenly, maybe even individual matches being uploaded, right. And it makes sense on a master's level. Maybe not every single event would be like that.
Like spotlight matches.
Right, exactly. Spotlight matches, and even every match being a spotlight match, right? So if you knew that at 6 p.m. every night, a Tetris VOD is going to be dropped, a single match, then that's like watching TV, right?
True.
If you watch your favorite show like Jeopardy or whatever, it's going to be on and what time. That's probably good for the algorithm, and it's also great for like a lot easier for a 40-minute best of 5 match to go viral as opposed to than a hour and a half, VOD to go viral for one match. Yeah.
Hey, besides the fact that you're this podcast pretty much serious and in general with Elo and with the VODs and all that, you're pretty serious. You also have a fun side. You like to meme. You don't want to be taken seriously.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very aware of that. Yeah.
Is it sometimes hard for people to draw a line between when you're memeing, when you're serious?
Oh, totally. Speaking of, Vala got me in and helped me with the spreadsheets way back. Helped me get into CTWC way back when. But he was the first one who always says, "I can't tell if you're memeing or if you're playing straight here, Pumpy." And then sometimes I got like verbally rebuked by people, even mods, that like, you need to stop. Right? That was some of the earlier days, right? Figuring it out. But I mean, I do this in my classes too, right? It's a persona a little bit, right? I clearly am knowledgeable of the material that I teach, right? Or else I wouldn't be hired or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But I don't have to come off as this stuck up professor. I don't have to come off as this person who understands deeply what's going on in these meaningful relationships, right? I get all that, but if I can laugh and joke and break it down in a common language, that's been my MO. This who I am, right? It's kind of that's definitely my personality, and definitely sometimes it's a little far. People can't tell. I think even recently, I said no matter what, we will have a new 2021 CTWC champion.
It's true in a way.
People, it's 100% true. We've never had a 2021 CTWC
exactly
champion, right? So so some people took that very seriously and like, Pumpy, you're the statistician. How did you mess this up, right? And even just like 3 days ago, someone pinged me and said you messed up, and I was like, oh no, that was a joke. So yeah, I mean, you do have to watch sometimes, but at the other times too, right? You know what to joke about, right? Like if someone thinks that I'm an idiot, great, right? Who cares, right?
Yeah.
If someone thinks I'm a mastermind, well, great. Who cares, right? It's the same thing, right? I don't care what folks think about me, so I play around with that.
There are two different things I want to ask about. One is the story about the very serious Classic Tetris Accusation rules stream.
Yes. Sure. Well, first off, Classic Tetris Accusations is an important Discord server.
Remainings is the server owner, so
Remainings the server owner. He was sort of appalled by there was a confessions channel, right, where people confessed to things that they did.
yeah.
But there was not an accusations channel. Right? So if you believe like me that everything in life there's opposites, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to have a confessions channel, you need an accusations place that people can accuse people. So,
Yeah.
Classic Tetris Accusation, CTA. I'm now part of the lead investigator of Classic Tetris Accusations, where we can make the right accusations every single time.
Like Alpaitum cheated his max out.
That's right. It's a very important one. Like Kataru and I got into a huge fight, and Kataru left the server even of CTA. So
Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna just because people I am memeing. Okay, go back to this. But very serious, right? Very serious
very
Discord.
serious.
Yeah, okay, there we go. One thing that happened in there was a rules channel, and all of it's just jokes and that kind of thing. There's a rules channel full of jokes, and then someone made rules 2. Like rules 1 wasn't good enough. There was rules 2, and I said I don't need the rules. I'm above the rules. I don't need those. They don't affect me. I'm gonna do whatever I want.
You're the lead investigator of CTA, so
I'm the lead investigator. It does not affect me. So I muted the channel, and at the channel too. This is a meme Discord, so everybody can ping everybody. Right, one of those things that happens in those. That everybody can get notifications on their phone or on their desktop or whatever that you've been called out. That's something that was happening in Rules 2, and I screen capped it. I took a picture on my phone or on my computer, but mostly on my phone because I like the layout better. And I would post it, say, "See, I'm not reading the rules. Here's a proof that I'm not reading the rules of Rules 2." It got a little out of hand when I was at a wedding. And I posted a picture of it, and I said, "Okay, now maybe now is a little bit too far. Maybe I committed too far." But I think it hit 69 notifications, so I had to do it, right?
Yeah, we ended up with 130 rules or something like
130, yeah. So 130 rules that I didn't read, and I said something. I think the wedding was a wake up call. All right, I mean, this is all fun and games, and it's fun. But at the wedding, I was like, okay, I need to wrap this down at some point, and I listed a time and date that I would read the rules for the first time. Right? And then certain of the rules applied only to me. Whatever the rules were, I would follow them or something like that. I don't remember exactly how I phrased it. So I streamed. It was about an hour and a half of me reading every single rule that was done there, and I think I did almost everything. There was 1 or 2 rules I did not follow them. I'm not doing that. That's a little bit too memey. But one of them was seeing the 12 Days of Tetris, right? I did that. I pulled my piano out and sung it and needed the lyrics and everything. I needed to do some push-ups. I did some push-ups on stream. And I read all the rules, and I educated myself, and that was a good time. That was honestly, Frank, memes aside and everything, that was the first time I'm like, okay, I'm a member of the community now. Right?
Yeah.
Everybody, I'm good enough to meme on. This is good enough for me.
It was a fun stream. People were editing the rules while you were reading them.
That's true, right? They were adding more rules at the bottom. And I couldn't see it because I was just scrolling along, but I could see the pings popping up. I was like, oh my gosh, this stream is gonna last forever. So
and something different is I heard rumors that you are behind the YouTube channel of the NES Tetris World records.
We did talk about video editing in this podcast, but no further comment at this time. Yeah. Sure.
It's the last episode of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
What is one crazy prediction for 2022 in Classic Tetris that you are willing to make right now on the spot?
So the obvious thing would be crazy and just go for rollers, right? Oh my gosh, the rollers are gonna take over, right? Oh my gosh, that'd be crazy. But I think what would actually happen, but also seem crazy right now, is that I think it may be possible that CTWC does not use the original ROM for next year. I think that's more likely a crazy thing to think about right now and say out loud just 1 week after the top 8.
Yeah.
But I think the sport has changed, that there might be a different they already use their own cartridges, right? But like the line cap might be implemented by CTWC 2022.
Yeah.
That's the crazy prediction, I think. I don't think maybe that. Well, it seems crazy to me because I'm very involved. Maybe that doesn't seem so crazy to people outside. But I think that a lot of things would have to happen for that to happen, and that's the crazy part, right? Rollers have to confirm that okay, we can actually consistently score a bunch of lines. So I'm assuming that when saying that it would be crazy, right? That's sort of like that there's a competition ROM that limits the number of lines that a player has within the game. Yeah. By CTWC 2022 and CTWC 2022.
Will CTWC be the first one to implement that line cap?
No. I don't think so. I think I think we're very close to. Honestly, my predictions were a little off. We do not have a 19 max out. Not 19, a 29 max out yet. With rolling. I predicted it by the 18th, and it's 3 days after the recording. But maybe by the time you hear this, there is a 29 max out, right?
Oh yeah.
And I think that, and of course, PAL has been completely shook, right? Fractal with a 2.1 million. Honestly, seeing it by CTEC might be the safer choice than CTWC, right? Because the Fractal just won Classic Tetris PAL today too. So tier 1. So I think that I think rolling has shown that the kill screen is not a kill screen, and that's going to challenge a lot of conceptions that we have, and so that's a little bit crazy. I guess the crazier thing that I could also see happening is that we are going to get a game glitch out for the first time, that someone's going to roll for an hour. And
oh my god!
And we're going to see it. I don't, because people have the drive to do it, right? They're playing for an hour now. They're chasing PBs, right? And someone says, you know what? I just want a single for an hour. And they do that for 2 days or something, right? I could see it, right? It's RNG dependent, but it's not, I mean, if you're trying to min out, right? It's a little different. So, that's to me, see, even saying that doesn't seem that crazy, right? And you went, oh my God. And to me, it's like, I see it, right? You know, the amount of time and dedication I have yet to, I don't underestimate what people are doing with this game.
Yeah.
And as part of the Elo owners, it's a little terrifying, right? All these things changing so quickly, and you just have to do your best. You have to make adjustments where necessary. And I think that I'll say CTWC with a competition ROM that limits the line count, because they already have a competition ROM where you can have the same piece sets, right? But step further, that's a little bit more of drawing a line in the sand that scene has broken the game, right? Having the same RNG does not mean the game is broken necessarily. It just means that things are fair.
True.
The other one says, all right, rollers have changed the game to this point that we don't want it to change to.
We'll see what 2022 will bring. Pumpy, thank you so much for joining me on the Dependency Podcast. This was honestly a true blessing to have you on.
So glad to be here, Frank. Keep doing what you're doing. You're integral to the community.
And with that all being said, this will be the end of the Peace Dependency Podcast. Thank you all for listening, and make sure you follow the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Don't forget to join the Tetris Friendlies Discord server and follow me on the socials @SirMazer. Have a great Tetris month, and I will see you all in January of 2022. Bye! The Peace Dependency Podcast was brought to you by Total Red NES. Shop your Goofy Food Controller TWO merch and CTWC approved hardware on TotalRedNES.com.